Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Thursday, November 20th, 2025. And a show note, tomorrow I will be late. It is going to happen. I will be late. I have an early morning thing I have to go do. And so I'm going to go do it. And I'm not back until like after lunch. So it's going to be a late show tomorrow in the afternoon. I apologize, but that's just how it's got to be. I was thinking of just not doing a show. And then I thought, no, that's not a good idea. I don't like missing a day. So apologies. We'll just have to wait for the show and that'll be fine. And Saturday might also be later than normal, but it might also come in around the same time, but it might be late. Sunday is up in the air until I find out how well I do Friday and Saturday. So we'll see how things go. But there's disruption in my schedule, and I apologize, but it is what it is. It can't be avoided. So what are you going to do? Liberal vote buying scheme is exposed. Maybe. What's his name? Oh, he was a prominent person in Trudeau's cabinet and in his government, and Pablo Rodriguez. Ridiculous hair, right? He's now claiming that he's getting a third-party auditor to come and look at the leadership race votes, and I think all of our institutions are rigged, so this is kind of theater that makes me laugh. So that's interesting. Energy weapons are all the rage. The United Kingdom unleashed its latest ship-mounted energy laser weapon that takes down high-speed drones and all sorts of stuff. Can't wait till we have phasers. That'll be fun. Cloned meat win. No more cloned meat. And I briefly connected with Joe. He's going to come by on Sunday, and hopefully everything's working out on Sunday for the timing. But we'll sort it out. I'm going to try and get a table talk done this weekend because I'm interested in connecting, and it's fun. So I think Sunday will be just fine. So. But Health Canada backed down on, not Health Canada, the government of Canada backed down on just allowing cloned meat into the market. So yay. Health dollars to terrorists in Minnesota. This is a pretty wild story out of the United States. And SAB planes. Forget those F-35s. Who needs F-35s, right? Who needs those connections? Who needs that goodwill from the United States? Psh, we need to talk to Sweden and buy some SAB planes or something like that, which seems like a terrible idea. And Freeland is gone. Freeland's out. Is she exiting politics for Rhodes Scholar think tank? Yes, it looks like she's going to be the CEO of the Rhodes Scholar thing. And does that mean there's going to be a by-election in her riding, or is she just not going to? Is she going to go do this while she's also an MP and the Ukraine convoy? Genuinely, I don't know. But there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we've got to start with her favorite red dress and Chrystia Freeland. This picture looks a little old to me, right? It looks, I don't know, a few years old, 5 years old anyway. Andy Lee says, congrats Rhodes Trust for appointing the woman who laughed as she extrajudicially froze the bank accounts of dissident Canadian civilians as your CEO. So there you go. Awesome. Rhodes Trust says Canadian politician, acclaimed journalist, and award-winning author Chrystia Freeland has been appointed as the next warden of the Rhodes House and CEO of the Rhodes Trust. So there are people, Greg says, the significance of this cannot be understated. Chrystia Freeland named CEO of Rhodes Trust. Ian says, a thread I did on the Rothschilds and Cecil Rhodes. And so this is beyond the scope of the podcast today, but these are pieces moving on a chessboard. This is just like Rutte being moved to NATO, being the boss of NATO. I'm sure Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry's pairing is not an accident, and I find it similar. I feel like those are moves on a chessboard, the astronaut and the imbecile. And so when I watch Chrystia Freeland moving from a political position that's relatively powerless to a Rhodes Trust CEO, that wields more power, and the Rhodes Trust is funding students from around the world, and so you're allowed to choose who you want to put into higher education and train them along, and well, that's great for seeding young global leaders and stuff, right? So it just seems to me the movement on the chessboard is obvious, and the only thing that I'm not sure of is her seat vacant? Or is she keeping that until the next election's called, or what? Like, I don't have any kind of details about that. It makes me feel like I'm talking about clone meat. I don't have any details about anything. Mario says, he's responding to Penny. Penny says, a dignified exit from politics. This makes me think that her seat's open, but I haven't heard anything about a by-election. A dignified exit from politics. Former Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, Chrystia Freeland, appointed as next warden and CEO of the Rhodes Trust. I would imagine that's pretty, busy job. Right? You got to do stuff, right? Or can you just sit around and throw darts at a dartboard all day, right? Kids' faces on a dartboard and you hit one. And you're like, all right, I'll interview that one. Mario says, yes, how dignified. She delivered a disastrous budget last year, threatens to quit, brings down her leader, then helps install her child's godfather as the prime minister, now becomes CEO of the company that gives scholarships where Carney did his master's and PhD. Yes, very dignified exit for a liberal, right? So golden parachute at the very least, but also I fear influence in the future generations of young global leaders. That's what Chrystia Freeland really covets, right? Chrystia Freeland again says, wonderful to see Kamala Harris in Toronto, always inspiring to catch up with a friend whose leadership and personal journey continue to motivate many of us. Yikes. I mean, Baba Freeland is looking aged, right? Like she's looking more and more like a Baba every day. And Kamala Harris is she drunk? I'm just kidding, but is she though? It's very interesting. Why is Kamala Harris was not a good presidential candidate, and she was not somebody who I think championed anything that echo our values, Canadian values, or sensible people's values, or anything like that. I don't like Kamala Harris. I don't trust Kamala Harris as much as I don't like Chrystia Freeland or trust Chrystia Freeland. And so it's just weird to me how our politicians latch on to the worst of the rest of the world's politicians, right? Next, it'll be Keir Starmer, who Chrystia Freeland's standing next to and smiling big with, right? It's just weird. They're awful. They're awful. And it's plain as day, obvious that they're awful. And yet nothing happens. Andy Lee says, so she's responding to Brittany. Brittany says, the clerk of the Privy Council and secretary to cabinet, who had a huge hand in this foreign interference file, is married to the previous deputy chief electoral officer at Elections Canada. Weird, right? And Andy Lee picks up from there. She says, John Hannaford, ex-foreign defense advisor to Justin Trudeau, now clerk to the Privy Council, and his wife, then chief of Elections Canada, meet former ambassador Lao Zawi? I'm getting that terribly wrong. The ambassador pushed for us to join the AIIB. We would shortly after this, with Hannaford named as governor. So it seems like insider baseball, right? It doesn't seem like this is above board. It doesn't seem like we'll agree to hold a leadership contest and the best person will interview for the job and blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, I need somebody to be the governor of this thing. What are you doing? I guess I could be the governor, like hanging out at this dinner, right? This is why you go to these dinners. Those dinners are tiring. It's annoying. I don't like glad handing because you always have to be on, right? It's not very fun. Andrew Lawton says, let's talk about money. And this is the grab bag of governance money edition. And Andrew Lawton says, Liberals on the Finance Committee have been filibustering for the past hour to prevent a vote on a motion calling on the Parliamentary Budget Officer to testify about the budget. They don't want Canadians to hear his warnings about the fiscal cliff. The Liberals are driving us off. How come the CPC passed the budget then? Because they sat out enough MPs to deadlock it. And I mean, sure, the Liberal MP who was the speaker would have to break the tie. But if the Conservatives, and I've said this yesterday and probably a couple of days ago, but if the Conservatives had the three MPs who sat out across the floor, we would be in an election right now, right? So it seems like the Liberals and the Conservatives were working together to pull the wool over the eyes of the Canadian citizen and not read them in on the game plan, because the game plan was to pass the budget. And that's pretty bullshit, right? And the Conservatives were saying, yes, we're going to vote against this. Nope. There weren't any Game of Thrones, House of Cards type negotiations going on with, Kevin Spacey going to all these people and having closed door meetings in their offices and, like, hey, NDP... The NDP all voted no, but like there's two who abstained. So it seems like a plan. It seems like a plan put into place to mislead Canadians or mislead the CPC MPs who were voting in good faith, no, thinking that, maybe they were going to make a difference. And then their leadership sandbag them? I don't know. But that's pretty brutal, right? Like, does Andrew Lawton not know? Did he not know that they were going to pass the budget? Did he not? Super weird. Same with C5. Why would the Conservatives give the Liberals a way out of their bad Bill C69? Bill C5 gives them a way around it, right? Only for who they want to pick and choose. Why would you do that? If somebody came to me and said, see this bill here, it's blocking us from making pipelines. Yeah, I see that. We want to create a pathway around this bill. Oh, okay, great. I'll vote for that. No, I'd say screw it. You have the power to remove this bad bill that's blocking all the pipelines. Remove the bad bill. I'm not going to give you a way around it. Why did you vote for that, right? Why did you pass C5? Oh, it's a strategy. It's a strategy as it sounds like you're liberals, right? Does Andrew Lawton know that? Does Strauss know that? Does Larry hanging out with Richard Gere, what's his name? Brock know that? It's just wild, right? Like on one side, it's kabuki theater. Like, we're going to hold these guys accountable. They're filibustering. Oh my gosh. Is it better to filibuster out in the open or be snakes in the grass and pull the wool over everybody's eyes and lie about voting no for the budget? Because they damn well passed it. So I just don't trust them. I like Andrew Lawton and I like Matt Strauss and I like a couple of the other ones. Like, as people, they seemed like fine people and they weren't around when COVID happened. But all of the people who are in the House of Commons right now, who were around when COVID happened, and the people who were in the House of Commons then but aren't now, should probably be held accountable for the bullshit they did, like lockdowns and forced masks and travel restrictions, all that stuff, because that's a violation of the agreement between the governed and the government. And we should hold them accountable, not allow them to play kabuki theater and, oh, well, I thought I was voting no for the budget. Did you, though? Did you? I don't know. And nobody's going to address it, right? Nobody's going to address it because it's uncomfortable, right? Have you watched my interview with John Carpe, right? I couldn't just sit by and agree with him that parents were not being held hostage by a disingenuous and ultimately evil education system. And there's no redress. You can't run for school board and win and then fix it. If you do, look at what's happening to the lady in Pickering, the Pickering counselor, Lisa, right? Like they have stripped her salary. They have maligned her. She got elected and still nothing. She's not able to do anything. The premier of BC years ago, 2015, was trying to figure out what the spraying in the sky was. He couldn't do anything about it either. So this is not a strategy, and I couldn't just sit there and allow people to think that it was. It's not, right? And so it's one of those things where it's rigged, and either you're going to talk about it and address it straight on, or you're going to pretend like it's not rigged and, oh, well, I can't figure out why we keep losing. I guess we didn't try hard enough. We'll try harder next time. And, we'll let them continue to destroy the country for the next 5 years. Well, there's not a damn thing we can do about it. Like, because it's fucking well rigged. It's rigged. Excuse my language, but it is. And it pisses me off when people refuse to acknowledge the reality of the situation. It's like we're playing Monopoly and they come up and start playing a different game and then claim they win. And it's like, well, great, but that has no bearing on the game that is actually happening. And our country is being destroyed because of it. Anyway, go watch the interview. It's quite fiery. It's interesting. It was fun, but I don't know if he's coming back. Brian Lilly says, and when I was younger, I used to get into debates with bosses and coworkers in good faith. And I would act the same way because I feel like we're discussing the position. Like we're holding this thing that we're talking about, and this is here, and it's not personal. It's the thing we're talking about. And I would get fiery about it a little bit, and I wouldn't give an inch unless they made a good point, right? If they made a good point, I would concede. But if they didn't, I would push back. And so it got me in trouble more than once because they thought I was angry or they thought I was fighting. And often because I perceived that I won and they lost, I made better points than they did. And then they didn't want to have the conversation anymore. And then they got mad at me. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, you lost, and like, stop being a sore loser about it. And that didn't help, right? But fundamentally, like, I like a good debate, and I'll take a good debate to the ends of the earth because I find it interesting and I want to see whose ideas are better. Let's test the metal, right? And most people just can't stand up to that, I guess. And they couldn't back when I was younger. It seemed John was fine, but again, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things play out. I don't know. I think you should be able to have fiery debates. I think you should be able to say, hey, look, this looks rigged. Whether it's rigged or not, it looks rigged. And if you can't say that, then you can't address the problem. Then what's the point? What's the point of the conversation? Anyway, Brian Lilly says, more than 30 Canadian companies supply parts for the F-35. Canadian content is worth 3.2 million parts per plane, $3.2 million per plane. That's a lot of money per plane on every plane, not just the ones we buy. Carney wants to throw this away for false claims of 10,000 jobs from Saab building the Gripen here. Gripen? Sorry, I'm probably getting that name wrong. And a little bit more from this Brian Lilly article. That was Brian Lilly himself, just kind of giving an overview. Here's CBC Watcher quoting from the article. There are more than 30 Canadian companies supplying parts for the F-35 project. As part of the F-35 program, Canadian companies are able to supply parts and benefit from every single F-35 built, and not just the ones built for Canada. The estimated value of Canadian parts in every F-35 is 3.2 million. More than 1,200 of the jets have already been produced, and there's a backlog of 2,000 still left to be built, meaning a huge potential boon for Canadian industry. There are already 2,500 to 3,000 jobs supported across the country, from Richmond, BC to Nova Scotia, and plenty of points in between, making everything from tail assemblies to landing gear. If Canada pulls out of the F-35 project again, those jobs will likely disappear. Maybe not overnight, but over time, the Americans will find new suppliers based in the US or one of the many allied countries buying the jets. That's exactly what Mark Carney wants. He wants America to break their close ties with Canada. And for some reason, he's convinced that that's going to be beneficial for Canada, and I'm convinced that he's wrong. Because he's wrong. Here's Mel Joly dressed up in military garb addressing the Swiss who are making the military SAB planes that we want to buy, I guess. CBC Watcher says Mel Joly sports a fashionable military flight suit and accessory belt when hosting the Swedish royalty selling military jets. If Carney is demanding black shoes and suits of his ministers, what's up with this Trudeau-esque costume nonsense? Yeah, well... Mel Joly does like the costumes. I thought this was introduction. Michael Geist is reporting Canadian government introduces new Stablecoin Act as a part of the budget implementation legislation. I thought this was on the way to central bank digital currencies, but it may be still, but it seems like this is more mirroring the Genius Act, and it is firming up the rules around stablecoins. Stablecoins are, if you want to buy into Bitcoin, usually what you do is you buy US dollar stablecoins, which is pegged to the US dollar. So if the US dollar gains a cent, the US stablecoin also gains a cent. It's pegged par with the US dollar. So whenever you buy it, it is the same value as the US dollar. And then you can buy Bitcoin with the US stablecoin. Now, they have the Genius Act in the United States, which oversees stablecoin creation and so on and so forth. And now Canada's introduced something similar, mirroring the Genius Act, and Michael Geist goes over this. So it's a regulation to make sure that the stablecoin is pegged properly and appropriately to the asset that you're pegging it to. So if it's Canadian dollar, or if it's pound, or whatever it is, right? Making sure that it's pegged properly and there's no funny business, essentially. I haven't read the bill, but Michael Geist goes through it, and that's what it is. So the stablecoin issuer must maintain reserve assets. This is interesting. So you have to have reserve assets. So this may prevent some companies from getting into it because before potentially you didn't have to back it with anything, right? Like you could just say, oh yeah, we have all this stablecoin. Now there's rules regarding how much stablecoin you can house and how much you have to back that up with liquid assets and so on and so forth, spendable assets, right? So it's worth kind of reading, but it's a little past the scope of this podcast today. But again, I thought it was central bank digital currency, but it doesn't seem like they're using it in that direction. They're just using it as oversight. But I'm suspect of Bitcoin because everything's on the ledger. And so like Bitcoin, and when they want us to move into another system, they want you to be doing it anyway. And then they'll just be like, oh yeah, well, you're doing it, so we're just going to do it. I like fundamentally the idea of Bitcoin, but I feel like maybe Bitcoin is the central bank digital currency we're trying to avoid, and they're rushing us. They're a lot, and there's a bribe element to it, right? Like if you get in early, you get a bump of your dollar is worth more, right? Because the currency increases in value, and there's a bit of bribery there, right? So I don't know. Here is trade news. Trump is in the Middle East, and let me know what you think about the Bitcoin stuff. Do you think this is like a good idea or if it's a bad idea? I don't know. I do own Bitcoin and it's made me money, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Real Mr. Bench says Prince Mohammed of Saudi Arabia committed to investing $1 trillion in the USA when he met Trump. Carney flew to the United Arab Emirates. What kind of investment will he get for Canada? So Trump is saying that this guy, and there was a reporter who said your family's company, your companies are doing business in Saudi Arabia. Do you think it's appropriate for you to be making this deal? And Trump has conflict of interests in a similar way that Carney does. And what is approved, the approved way of doing it is you have a screen, right? You have a conflict of interest screen. So Trump is not managing his businesses. His children are. But if your kids are managing your business, you know what's going on, right? Probably, right? Same way Carney knows what's going on with his investments. He knows what his portfolio is, probably, right? And he knows that his portfolio managers aren't going to sell his his shares of Brookfield, for example, right? They're going to be making him lots and lots of money over the next few years. So there were gotcha questions here and there, but fundamentally, I feel Trump is doing his job representing the United States and getting a commitment from this guy. Apparently, this guy killed the Kobayashi guy. I can't remember his name. The Saudi Arabian journalist. Trump addresses it, and this guy laughs. Like it's kind of crazy. But ultimately, I think Trump is doing the job of representing the United States and making deals that are worth lots of money for the United States. $1 trillion investment is good news, right? Like that's not bad news, right? So is this bad? Does this send bad optics or good optics? Carney's going to go to the UAE and get nothing. So like, I think I'd rather they both have conflicts, right? Like Carney doesn't get us anything. He gets Brookfield everything. Nothing for Canada. Seems like Trump is focused on USA. Maybe I'm wrong, but like if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Andy Lee says, we know Bruce Flatt and Brookfield were just there a few days ago. So Mark Carney is touching down in the UAE, Abu Dhabi, and his team has already, Brookfield's team has already been there ahead to pave the way and, have the final handshakes and stuff. Here's Mark Carney says, touchdown in Abu Dhabi. I'm here to strengthen Canada's economic partnership with the United Arab Emirates, meet with business leaders looking to invest in Canada and unlock new export opportunities to benefit Canadian workers and businesses. And so here is from November 13th, Khaled bin Mohammed bin Zayed meets executive management delegation from Brookfield Corporation. Wow. Shocking. I'm shocked. This is me being shocked, right? So if you had to choose Mark Carney or Donald Trump, both with conflicts, who do you choose? Who do you choose? Here is a very interesting exchange. Man, so this grab bag of governance has a lot of committees and asking questions of people and all sorts of stuff. After this, I've got to kill the stream, but this is Matt Strauss asking the immigration minister if refugees who have their claims denied, if they still get healthcare. She says no, and then he pulls up the website and says, okay, so like, how come the website says they get it? Are you lying or is the website lying? And they all get really, really upset about him saying that they're lying. Here we go.
Mr. Diab, I had to check. I mean, we all know you as the Minister of Immigration, but you are the Minister of Refugees as well. And so I guess I was dumbfounded when you said that you don't know what % of refugee claims are ultimately accepted in the last round.
I do not. I can go on the website and check, and I'm sure
maybe you should.
Colleagues can do that. We can definitely follow up with you.
Okay, I mean, that was 20 minutes ago. When somebody's refugee claim is denied, do they continue to receive benefits from IFHP?
No, when it's denied, it follows through the process. Once the process is concluded, it ends.
So, Minister, I have another question about the IFHP, and it's really important for the Canadians following along at home to understand. So this program, the $900 million program, includes pharmaceuticals and vision care and mental health counseling and assistive devices and physiotherapy and occupational speech therapy and all sorts of things that seniors in Kitchener do not get unless they have supplemental health coverage. I asked you, if somebody's refugee claim is denied, do they continue to get all of this coverage? And you said no. Here I have your website. It says, as a refugee claimant, you'll get IFHP coverage if your claim for refugee protection has been rejected by the IRB. So did you lie to the committee, or is your website lying?
Excuse me?
I said, did you lie to the committee, or is your website lying?
Be careful with the language, Mr. Strauss.
Did you mislead the committee, or is the website misleading?
Not in the job of doing that. Thank you very much. It's not something that is in my dictionary either. So what I said is the interim.
That was a miss. As a retort, that was a miss. It wasn't clear what she was referring to. It was unclear. It was undefined. I give it a 4 out of 10.
Federal health program provides temporary health care coverage to address urgent and essential medical needs for refugees and asylum claimants while they wait to become eligible for provincial and territorial health insurance plans. And
then I asked, if your refugee claim is denied, do you continue to receive coverage? And here your website says you continue to receive coverage if your claim is denied, if your refugee claim is denied by IRB.
I said they continue to receive claims until all the refugee process is concluded.
So what part of the process comes after the claim being denied by IRB?
Well, again, it's the IRB that takes care of that. There is a process, and there is a legal process.
So I'm to understand that you, as the minister who looks after this interim federal health program, who is the Minister of Refugees, doesn't know what part of the process comes after the IRB denying your refugee claim?
Well, again, if I put the chapeau on my hat when I was a lawyer, people can appeal, or there could be other considerations. So again, this is not
Thank you. I'd like to yield my time over to Dr.
Till the last appeal is exhausted, your health care is covered. Wow.